I think the nature of warfare is being changed, arguably as much as the original invention of the airplane, and maybe even the game-changing that nuclear weapons were.
And Republicans are always famous of talking about energy independence. Well, it's kind of a BS concept.
Some dude gets a drone out of his garage with a remote control that he bought at Best Buy, and you blow up a tanker. Welcome to Bourbon and Rum, the podcast dedicated to civil conversation. I'm Kent, I like rum, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle, I like bourbon. I tend to be a little more conservative. We're brothers talking politics over bourbon and rum.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking a Memphis bourbon. It's called Blue Note. I don't know if I've had it on this podcast before or not. It's a sourced bourbon. I think Green River Distillery actually makes the juice, but this is like one of these distilleries where, you know, they get other people's stuff. They brand it, but it's pretty high proof, 120 proof, and kind of a high rye, but a little sweeter than some of the ryes. What are you drinking on?
I've got one of those, I'm trying to thin the herd a little bit, and I've got a bunch of bottles with about, you know, a finger and a half left in the bottom of them. So this is one of those, the Venezuelan rums that's terrible. Some of them are good. This one's not good. So I'm just going to try to get rid of it. I won't besmirch the name.
What's the name of that?
I can't even remember. It's over in the other room. And I wouldn't want to, you know, slander a otherwise fine Venezuelan rum distiller. So.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't want to do that. Well, I'm doing the same thing. I haven't drank any of this stuff in like 6 months, but I'm looking same thing at the shelf and I'm like, well, this one's a little low, so I better start knocking these out.
Create some space. Well, what's going on? What's happening in the world?
You know, the war continues to rage on in Iran. Hard to know exactly, you know, the progress. I mean, it sounds like they're taking out a lot of targets, and I think there's questions of whether the current Ayatollah's son is alive, or I don't think he's been seen publicly, but they say he's alive and well, so we'll see if that turns out. But you know, I think there's hope again that there's going to be a overthrow of some kind. I think obviously the government's pretty entrenched. I know I've been reading about the former Shah's son. Supposedly he's working on some angles. I mean, I just, you know, not sure how and when the people can stand up and what that tipping point looks like. I think the other big issue right now is the Strait of Hormuz and the you know, lobbing up little drones and such. I mean, I think we've pretty much taken out their navy. We've taken out the big ships, but now it's a problem of these little drones they lob up and creating havoc and scaring off the tankers.
Well, I won't pass myself off as a military expert, but I think this would be in keeping with things that you said in the past. I mean, if we've learned one thing from Ukraine and the use of drones, you know, maybe big capital warships are not where we ought to be spending our billions. I mean, seriously, like, for all of this, we got all the Tomahawks in the world. We're flying B-2s around the world, and ultimately it's floating mines and drones that have choked the world's oil supply. I mean, I think that is, and I'm not saying this just to beat a drum on the administration, but it's like, man, you have got to look at, the world has changed really, really fast. I think this is going to sound stupid, but I think that the nature of warfare is being changed, arguably as much as the original invention of the airplane, and maybe even the game-changing that nuclear weapons were. What changed was not just the ability of nuclear weapons to kill a lot of people. It was like the ultimate trump card, and it required this just massive capital and scientific investment to do it. Well, you have something that doesn't
Yeah.
kill people at the rate like nuclear weapons do, but three dudes in a basement can now make stuff that can, you know what I mean? I think it's really profound.
I think it is too. And I would say one of the things it highlights is something that is bigger than an administration, and that is the military-industrial complex. I mean, it
Yeah.
moves like a slow, huge aircraft carrier. And, in the world of AI and rapid advancement in technology, I think that's our biggest risk is the ship is not going to move fast enough because, the B-21 that we're spending gazillions of dollars on right now, well, that's technology they decided upon a decade ago, and it's like we got to be able to move faster to these really asymmetric threats.
Yeah, I think that's really the lesson on this. I think it's telling that we're not even ready to claim that we can protect ships through the Straits of Hormuz. You know, I don't know, and I don't know if they could. Right? What do? You send a destroyer alongside, and you hope that their anti-missile defense can protect the ship next to you. I don't know.
The part I am not an economist, and I don't even play one on television, but I don't, one thing I don't understand, and maybe you can help me with, is the price of oil and how, I get that it's a global commodity market, but why is it that, okay, the price of oil goes up because this issue with the Strait of Hormuz, but if I look at the United States, we get like 4% of our oil from the Middle East. So that supply disruption, it's not disrupting our supply, it's just disrupting the global supply, and thus the price goes up. And it's like, why can't there be a way to carve out price of oil in the U.S. versus the price of oil in places that are much heavier dependent on the Middle East?
Yeah, it's honestly a really good question, and opponents of globalization would point to this and say, how is it that we've got plenty of oil in Texas and in Oklahoma and California and off in the Gulf of Mexico? We have plenty of oil. We're virtually self-sufficient. Well, why are we why are we paying these domestic companies that?
Yeah, it seems like again, this is my simplistic understanding, but the price of oil went up. Well, I was charging $3 a gallon last week. This week I'm going to charge $4 a gallon, but but I guess their price is going up because the global price is going up. But it just doesn't make sense to me.
If anything, the price of oil should be going down, right? Because we've got the world's largest supply in Venezuela is now not under the thumb of this, right? And even if we don't have enough oil in the U.S., if you add the U.S. and Venezuela, keep your tankers in the straits. I don't care, right? But that's not how it's playing out.
Well, but I think it's it's also kind of a point when you think about it, when Republicans are always famous of talking about energy independence. Well, it's kind of a BS concept because there is no such thing as energy independence, because we could be supplying 100% of it and we're still going to charge because it's all futures based and everybody's paid for it based on a global price. So there is no such thing as a, independent energy independence.
Yeah, I agree.
So then that brings me to another question. Could other things become commoditized and sold in a futures market? And I guess where I'm going with that is like, we've been playing around with Kalshi a little bit, and these in that whatever the other betting website. Like, could other things become commoditized that aren't commoditized now?
Well, actually, you're talking to me from Texas, and it was about 25 years ago that a little company in Houston called Enron set out to commoditize the market for broadband. That was one of their things.
Oh,
And I'm going to find, this would be good for the show notes. I'm going to find, this, this is worth, this is worth viewing. I'm going to send you this. It is just the most beautiful thing. This is an actual Enron commercial. Can you see it?
yep. Looks vaguely familiar. Oh, a new market. Ask
So-
why.
But it's a good point. Like, what else is out there? What about data centers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true.
I mean, commoditized compute price.
One could be water rights. That
Oh.
would be interesting.
Yeah,
Talk about a
Yeah.
scarce commodity.
yeah, definitely. So, so how are you feeling about things? I guess I'll state my position. I don't want to just sound like I'm griping about things. I'm not willing to. I got a lot of friends. A lot of the left is up in arms. I'm not going to say that it was a bad thing to take out the leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I mean, I don't think that that's an inherently bad thing. I am concerned about confused war aims. Like, when do we know that we won? Trump's kind of prevaricating on that. Oh, it's almost over. And then Pete Hegseth is out there that, we're in for the long haul. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I always liked, when I was in the military and then as I got to know politics, I always liked the Weinberger doctrine they talked about in the 80s, which was we only go to war when there is a, material threat to the United States. Then we go at it with overwhelming force with a clear objective of when you're completed. I mean, I'm a little mixed on the threat. I mean, I think it's a threat, but I saw somebody aired a video. A conservative commentator I watch who was griping about it early on showed this reel of Benjamin Netanyahu talking in different snippets from like 1978 until now. Like, Iran is weeks away from centrifuges creating a nuclear weapon. It's like they've been weeks away for 40 years, and
Right.
not 78. It was something like, but it was like 80s. I mean, it's a long time. So that has been said for a long time. I do think, I don't really think, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they get in there and they're like, yeah, they were really close to a nuclear weapon. To me, the nuclear weapon thing is like North Korea. It's their chip, their golden chip for keeping people away from them. Like, I don't know how big of a threat that really is. I'm more thinking along those lines that Iran is a threat to everything else in the world order and world order. Whether it be Ukraine, whether it be what's going on in Russia and China and all these places, and Hezbollah and Hamas, and so I see them more as a global bad strings puller than, like, I guess I wasn't as fearful that they were going to slap nukes on a ICBM and lob them over here. I was more of these guys are a pain in the ass and they need to be dealt with. Okay, so number one of the Weinberger doctrine I'm good with. Number two, overwhelming force. I think it's as overwhelming a force as we're willing to use is the key there, because I mean, I don't think anybody wants to see 1 million troops storm into, and I guess that's the part that gets then tricky is this, well, when do you know that you're finished type of a thing. And I think I think that was one of the mistakes of the Iraq War is, hey, we're going to send in brigades and divisions and we're going to make this place a democracy and we're going to make everybody happy. Well, I think, we talked about this the other day. I mean, I think it was a really painful journey. I think Iraq's in a pretty good place now. But, like, I don't know that sending people door to door was necessarily the way to get there. So
Right.
I kind of like the approach with Iran where it's much more air power driven. I'm okay with ground power as long as it's special forces and it's pinpointed. And, I don't think we should be going door to door because, again, like, to me, the problem to solve, and that's the other thing. I mean, the problem to solve Iran isn't like World War II. We got to break the will of the people. I mean, the people aren't the problem. It's the yahoos in charge, and so that is where I find it challenging here. Is like, how do you define that point? I think one way you could define it is when the government's obliterated to the point where the people actually can jump up and take control. But the part I'm worried about is, can you get to a place where the government is debilitated enough, but the people still are there and can make a difference? Or does it get to a, look at the situation in Gaza. Does it get to a place where the whole place is just in ruins and nobody's going to be in control? So I don't know. I'm with you. And I think I would hope that no matter who's in charge, I think I would have supported something like this. But I also think this is a problem that, I don't know that this is a easily solvable problem for either side of the aisle as part of the challenge.
Yeah. On that front about bipartisanship, I will refer to, I don't know if you saw the editorial by David Boies in the Wall Street Journal. It was really good. He's a prominent Democrat, and he said, we shouldn't be airing our laundry in public, right? Like, if the United States has to undergo a military effort, we can debate the prudence of it, but we're not going to undercut the successes of our military. I mostly agree with that. I'm not convinced that this is an inherently immoral, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that I also don't think we should try to refuse people the right to make their beliefs known too, so
yeah. I mean, I'm rooting for us,
yeah.
And I hope that, and you hold me accountable because we're gonna keep doing this podcast for the next 20 years, Kent. So the next Democrat gets into play, hold me accountable to be rooting for the U.S. regardless of where we're at. I mean, if we're in the thick of it, we need to root for our country. But
of course. My criticism is I think that the idea of being able to effect regime change from the air, I don't think that's happened in history, and I don't think it's going to happen here. And some of that's for me. Like, I don't know if, like I said the other week, if Russia decided, hey, they think Trump's really on the ropes, 66% of the country doesn't support the guy. Well, let's just blow up the White House, and maybe that people will rise up against Trump. And I'm making a false equivalence because I know it's not the same thing, but nothing would galvanize me in support of Donald Trump, like a foreign power deciding to try to kill him.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean that makes sense, but I do think the Iran situation is you could say it's a matter of degree, but I think it's a significant enough difference. And it's also I think the level of atrocities and badness of the regime is beyond like left-right fight. It's like And
100% agree. And I
people,
don't
I
mean
think
to.
people, no, I know, but I mean, I think even the locals generally see that. But I really worry about that because, like, again, great, you take out the bad guys. But if bombs are exploding every day in my city and I live in Tehran, at some point I'm going to like, I'm sick of getting bombed, and it's like, that's the part I'm most fearful about this is how do you keep the will of the people like glad that we're getting rid of the regime and not like, hey, you sons of bitches, stop bombing us. I don't care who's in charge because that could happen. And that's,
Yeah,
to me, the biggest risk.
100%. The other thing that that we've touched on here, this idea about the straits being messed up, and I just don't know that, like, our ability to clear that up, that is not going to be easy. It could be a pretty low common denominator of what it takes to, that strait's 25 miles wide at the choke point or something like that.
Well, I
That's
don't know.
just
I saw a map of dots of all the ships, and it shows all these ships on the Iran side, and I was thinking, B-52s at a 50,000 foot altitude carpet bombing might have an impact, but I don't know. I don't know if they've tried that yet, but
I don't know.
I just
And
thought that
then
was always the I think that was like Vietnam. They were B-52s were doing 50,000 foot carpet bombing. I mean, that's pretty precise.
well, and you fly your bombs and everything like that, and you blow up a bunch of boats, and then some dude gets a drone out of his garage with a remote
Yeah,
control that he bought at Best Buy, and you
right.
blow up a tanker. I mean, that's the real risk of this, I
The other
think.
thing I'm really interested in, which I think will be a benefit, is when Saudi and the UAE and Qatar and Bahrain, they're close to a tipping point when they're like, all right, you bastards. All right, you
Yeah.
keep bombing me, fine. We're in.
Well, one thing that I came across this week when I was doing some reading, um, that I, again, this is like confessing that I was so out of it. One of the things that caught my attention, there's been a lot of problems with the Houthi rebels
Yeah.
from North Yemen. And I read a little deeper about the situation in Yemen. And I'm not kidding when I say that the scale of the problem in Yemen literally just blew my mind.
Yeah, they
So
say it's
just
the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
and in terms of scale, so the whole country of Yemen, just to put it in context, is 42 million people. That's more people. If a lot of people don't even know where Yemen is, it's kind of the southern end of the Arabian Peninsula. It has a higher population than Saudi Arabia, but they've been in a 25-year civil war. And so the Houthi rebels hold the capital of Sana'a. Um, and, again, I don't want to like give people a history lesson, but this war has gone on, and what it's created is a genuine, like, present and real starvation crisis for millions of people.
The population and size of the country is very similar to Texas.
Wow.
It's about as many people in Texas, similar land mass. Yeah, and the government is completely collapsed, and there's no services, and nobody's got food to eat or anything. It's a
Or even
mess.
water. The capital.
Right.
Uh, so one of the things that happens is that they do have some agricultural capacity, but it all gets diverted into growing cotton. The it's a thing they chew. It's kind of like cocaine leaves,
Mm.
and so there's this huge drug market that a lot of the water that should be going to raising staple crops to feed people gets diverted. It is just a disaster. And so a lot of my research was done with the help of AI, but I was like, well, first of all, why is this the way that it is? And it's this longstanding civil war that there's been really no resolution to.
Well, and it's kind of what I'm reading about. It's kind of a three-way thing because you got the Houthis, then you've got, the UAE is supporting a faction and the Saudis are supporting a faction, and they're all arming these people, which is a little interesting to me because I wouldn't have thought the Saudis and the UAE would be against each other, but they are kind of because you got the Houthis in the northwest, they control.
Who are supported by Iran.
They're supported by
Right.
Iran. And then you've got the Presidential Leadership Council, which is backed mainly by Saudi, and they're based in the southern port of Aden. And then you've got the Southern Separatists, the STC they call them, and it's a UAE-backed movement, and they want South Yemen to be its own country again. So now you've almost got not only they're fighting for Yemen, they're fighting for chunks of Yemen. It's really complicated.
So I don't have any hope of offering any solutions on it, but it struck me. One of the things that I asked was, when I was a kid, when we were young, the year that I graduated from high school, we had Live Aid and We Are the World, and there was a famine in Ethiopia, and to the world's credit, a lot of high society and culture rallied around raising money to address this looming humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia. And I looked it up at the time. The population of Ethiopia was 8 million people, 20% the number of people we're talking about in Yemen. And I'm not seeing any concerts to let's save the people of Yemen. And why is this not even really on the global radar?
Well, okay. There's 19 million Yemenis that need aid today in a country of roughly 34 to 35 million people. It's been a longer path than the Ethiopian famine.
Mm-hmm.
But still, yeah, you're right. It's not. Okay, this might be a politically insensitive thing to say, and actually, I don't mean it that way because I don't mean this negatively. But what I mean by politically insensitive is it may make people throw things at me, but is the racial and ethnic background of Ethiopians more politically favorable than is a starving black kid more politically favorable than a starving Muslim Arab kid? I don't know. I that sounds awful, but is that a factor?
I think it can't not be a factor. And, I'll even admit to myself, again, I knew that Yemen had a lot of problems, right? And I knew that the Houthi rebels were lobbing missiles at ships in the Red Sea. Shortly after the time of Live Aid, when we tried to help out Ethiopia, 5 years later, we were invading Iraq the first time. And so for 35 years of my 58 years on the planet, we've been in some degree of fighting with unstable countries in the Middle East. And even before that, in the 80s, we were looking back on since the creation of the State of Israel, from 1948 to today, 80 years of an unbroken cycle of violence and tragedy. And part of it is that maybe people just get inured.
Here's a top 10 list of top humanitarian crises in the world today. Top of the list is Sudan. 33 to
Okay.
34 million people involved, civil war, famine, displacement. Syria next, 16 to 17 million, civil war, economic collapse. Afghanistan is high on the list, is third with drought, I guess. I didn't realize that, 23, 24 million in need. Yemen is number 4. Ethiopia still 20 million in Ethiopia is a problem. Congo, why the hell do they say Democratic Republic of Congo or Democratic Republic of, I mean, can somebody at a global level say there is zero democratic anything in the Republic of Congo? Like, okay. Gaza, number 7, Ukraine, 8, South Sudan, Haiti. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, Yemen, like you said, it is square in the middle of some of the worst things happening. And it's just you start thinking about us and where we rank in the world today. Like if you look at the math of like what you make per year and how that ranks in the world, it's like we're at like the top. And I think part of the problem here is it's like we're at the top and it just looks like a too insurmountable of a problem, and there's nothing I can do. I mean, if the top, whatever, X percent, feels like there's nothing they can do, well, then nothing's going to get done for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have a point on this other than
I love the conversation. I mean, I don't love that. Sounds really negative. I don't love that we're talking that there's famine. I'm just saying I love that we're digging into this.
Yeah, no, I think it's more. I think your point is right. Like, what this left me thinking more than anything was like, I'm paying really close attention to the price of oil and what's this going to do to our GDP
and our 401ks, right?
Yeah. And we're talking about movement of 1% or 2% here and there, and just like, wow, I can't not pay attention to my own future, right? I got to be prudent about those things, but it's a real wake up call to me to think about. I've got 5%er problems of first world problems. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I can't, and I don't want to not live my own life. That's what I'm saying. But how do you reconcile some of this? And I think our news media does us no favors because it's very selective in what it portrays to us. And this is how a relatively well-read and educated man can be completely unaware that 18 million people in Yemen are in danger of famine.
A $60,000 annual salary puts you at the top 1 to 2% of the world.
And we live in the most prosperous time in the history of human beings.
Yeah.
So if you're the top 1% in the world today, you're in the top 100th of a percent or the top 10,000th of a percent in the history of humanity.
I mean, what's crazy is you can make 10 grand a year and be in the top 20%.
Wow. One of the things that is always interesting about those kind of statistics to me, though, because I think I read somewhere that in Yemen, like the per capita income, is like $600 or something like that. But they have different markets than we do too. I mean, I don't know. It's and that difference is so extreme that it almost, I mean, to your point, like, I don't know. I'm one of the 1% richest people in the history of humanity. It's just hard to just say those words out loud. And I can do absolutely nothing about Yemen.
Yeah.
Or, well, I guess I could surface it on a podcast, and our audience of thousands. It's not us. It's all of you people that got to take this up.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. It's like that podcast with Mark Cuban. It's like, we got to give more money to Ukraine. How much are you giving, Mark? Well, yeah. So Elon is at the top. At the bottom is zero. It says the middle person on Earth makes 8 to 10 grand a year. But that doesn't make sense because the top 20% is 10. So these numbers may not be working right.
Yeah. Is it averages or median? The median person.
It's median.
How much does Elon Musk make? Like, the median's going to be like, the median income in the planet's going to be like $500 billion or something.
Right.
That doesn't really tell the whole story. There's in the data science world, we call that a left skew.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I don't know. What is it?
But you bring up a good point in that, like, okay, well, we talked about this top 10 list: Sudan, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, Ethiopia, Congo, Gaza, Ukraine, South Sudan, Haiti. If you went through every news source, whether online, television, I mean, everybody's probably heard about Gaza in Ukraine. I'll be honest, I haven't seen a report on any news article on Sudan in probably a year or more.
Right.
And Yemen's on that list too. Yemen, you're hearing a little bit now with the conflict in the Middle East, but it's, that's the part that pisses me off a little bit. Like, well, a lot. Like, I mean, I don't watch television news anymore because it's just worthless. It's just these yahoos up there yelling at each other. But I felt like at one time television news, like headline news in the beginning, was actually really informative. I always laugh because we had a friend of our. I got some friends that are big into sports betting and gambling, and nowadays you monitor everything online. But in the old days, like, to keep track of the scores, you had to watch, headline news or something. And this one guy, a friend of ours, he's talking to one of his buddies about a game or something. The guy's like, "Oh, did you see about this and the price of oil and this and what?" Like, and he's like, "Man, you're really informed on current events." And he's like, "Well, I've been watching headline news nonstop for the last 48 hours." So he's really informed. He's mainly watching the scores, but I mean, there's not many places you can just get information. I always like, when I'm traveling, I like CNN International or BBC International, and I feel like those, you do see these different feature stories on different parts of the world, but like, we're so ate up with our own bullshit here in the U.S., we never know what's going on in the rest of the world, and it really is kind of sickening when you think about it.
Well, and to punctuate that point, the other one that makes me awfully sad is that they're not all 12,000 miles away from us. I fly over Haiti going to vacations. That is one that's right here in our not even in our hemisphere, it's in our backyard, for heaven's sake. And we've been able to do literally nothing to help the nation of Haiti.
Okay, so now then gets to another topic of this, and this is good. Okay, we all talk about, we think starving people is bad, famine, war, all that's bad. Okay, but let's go down the path of, forget war for a minute. Say you solve the war. How do you feed all these people?
Yeah.
And is that possible? And I'm not saying this like I'm trying to get out of it, something. I don't want to make it sound like that. I guess I wonder about, is part of the reason these problems don't get solved because they're unsolvable?
Yeah, probably so. Probably that's a part of it. I mean, it's not for lack of trying that we haven't been able to help Haiti. You know, the amount of, and not so much our government, but Haiti is a big destination for faith-based charitable organizations to do things.
Yeah.
And there's always this kind of like, well, it's not our government's job. We should let the churches take care of this. You hear this about welfare, things like that. Well, after having spent some time of my career working in churches, where nationwide the average giving of church-going people, not of but the average amount that people actually give to churches hovers usually, at most estimates, are around 1% of the income of the congregation. And I'm not trying to shame people for that, but it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, well, I don't want to pay taxes. It's not something our government should do. We should let the churches handle it. And I'm like, well, the church is going to handle it. The churches can't keep their doors open in this country. The number of churches that are, little dying congregations out in the country that are shuttering their doors every year, and that's going to be your plan for. I guess that's my point. Government is inherently inefficient. I can't argue with that. Well-meaning churches who are doing the best that they can are do the best they can, but
Right.
equally susceptible to problems that
Well,
big
and the
government
kind
is.
of money, that's the other part, is like the kind of money that it's going to take to make a dent in this stuff. It's going to have to hurt. But then it's like governments are the most inefficient way to collect the money, because then you're going to pay all these idiots and they're going to waste money on all this nonsense.
Well, I'm not a big one for let government fix it all. I mean, I am a Democrat. I lean more liberal that way. I'm less concerned about having government involvement with things. But even I would say, like, that's not an easy. So I think that it's inefficient to expect religious organizations to do it. The UN's pretty busy elsewhere. There have been attempts in Haiti to leverage, like, don't quote me if I'm wrong. If I'm right, quote me, because that'll look brilliant. But if I'm wrong, I think is it Nigeria or Kenya that has been putting their own troops to support peacekeeping in Haiti? Yeah, that might be wrong.
I mean,
So I guess what I'm saying is, what we ought to do?
Kenya.
I mean,
Kenya has been forking over 5,500 people to.
Wow.
It's called the Gang Suppression Force. Interesting. My thing is, though, back to, okay, if I'm Elon Musk, hey, I'm going to fix the situation in Haiti, and we're going to land in C5s full of fun meals, and we're going to feed everybody. That's not going to fix it. Like, you can feed you, or we could open up food stores, free grocery stores, and feed everybody. But like, really fixing these situations isn't just like handing out food. It's creating a methodology and a governance. To me, it's no coincidence that the top 10 humanitarian crises in the world are in 10 of the most screwed up countries in the world.
Yeah, 100% agree. Is famine the problem or the symptom of the disease?
Yeah.
What about a prize? Hear me out on this. What about if you said, if you're Elon Musk and you wanted to do something, what if you said, I have $100 billion prize that I will award to anybody who can build a Do it in a competitive way. Like if you can build
Yeah.
a functioning government and infrastructure in Haiti.
Well,
I
I
don't know.
think about this, like this whole rare earth bit. Like, could you create like a mining community and people are doing work and they're making money? I mean, a lot of parts of Africa, like Congo, yeah, there's a diamond mining, but that is not a way of benefiting the population.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. Is there a way though to something not big bureaucratic government, not good luck churches, you can do it, but is there a way to leverage,
yeah,
you know, my brother-in-law always says about mostly about big domestic problems. Congress is up there having their debate. We could hire McKinsey or Boston Consulting to write a report of how to fix this stuff, and they could probably give you step by step what needs to happen in a pretty airtight way for these things. These are
right.
a
Yeah.
lot of these things are not. I
If you
should say
got the
they're
right
not
people in the
hard.
room, you could probably solve. But can we get out of the way of our own bullshit political nonsense to solve it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. Well, this is kind of a downer to think about these unfixable problems, but I don't know. I think it's healthy to be reminded of, kind of to me, it's healthy to be reminded of the position of privilege that we occupy.
Yeah.
And I don't say that. I don't think you need to just walk around moping and feeling guilty. We're blessed and we're fortunate. I think that has obligations to us, and at a personal, but also at a kind of a collective level. And maybe that's the eye-opening thing I need.
I think the Bourbon and Rum podcast could fix it. I mean, all these other people can't fix it, but we can fix it, Ken.
Well, we are going to leverage our global reach and
That's
moral
right.
authority.
That's right.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.